Hello, I'm Rabbi Tobin. We're at B'nai Shalom, and we're studying Talmud on Mondays. Today is July 1st, 2019. We're in Chapter 3 of Sanhedrin still. The chapter is Borer. We're on 30b1 in the Schottenstein.
And there's no class next week.
You know what? I don't know why not. I was originally going to be
you're not going to be here.
closing on a house next week, which I'm not.
That was
So
last week.
what?
You told me last week you were closing on a house.
I'm not in charge of everything, it
Okay.
seems, so
It got-
things don't happen when I
it
want
got
them to
delayed?
happen. I don't know, but it won't be Monday. So I guess I can teach Monday. You want to have class Monday?
Sure.
Have one available? So it might turn into, after all the scheduling of on, off, on, off, on, off, I might just be on every week now, because I don't see a conflict
your
until
life.
the end of August. All right, so if you are online and you want to be told in advance when there is and is not class, please be sure to contact Tsunami Vasquez in the synagogue office, 973-731-0160, and get on our email list. There's an email distribution list, and now everyone is being told when and where class is whenever there are changes. So we're finally getting organized a year later. Okay.
How's your daughter doing in Israel?
My daughter should be landing in Israel soon. She was at Auschwitz yesterday, and she's doing the Eastern European thing, and it's gone very well. Thank you. The United
She's gonna
Synagogue
be one of
Youth
the-
Pilgrimage programs are amazing.
The whole summer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Great.
she's doing great things. I'm very proud of her. But anyone who has teenagers, they should send them on the USY Wheels programs in the summer, and they should send them on the Eastern European Israel Pilgrimage programs in the summer.
Is she
They're
available
amazing.
for birthright? I mean, is she eligible for birthright if she has this?
Yeah, the old Bubameiser that if you ever went on a trip, you can't go on Birthright. Birthright got rid of that.
Yeah.
Birthright, it's a Cinderella program. All kinds of people want to fund Birthright because it's a hot program. So they're not limiting it anymore.
My granddaughter's right now.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. She actually just texted me. She said Majinek was the worst one. She just left one of the death threats. So speak of the devil. Yeah. None of them are good. Okay, so here we go. Rabbi Shimon ben Eliakim was working diligently for Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Hanina, to have him ordained. Do you remember this story?
Yep.
Yeah, if you know the right people, you get ordained.
Right, so the bottom line here wasn't very satisfactory. The guy gave a lousy answer. He became a rabbi anyways, and the answer was, once you're ordained, you're ordained. And that was the end of that. So on the bottom right of 30b1, the Gemara is going to continue to explore whether halacha follows Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha regarding two possible applications of the ruling. One, each of two witnesses testifies that he heard somebody admit that a parcel of real property belongs to his fellow, and each of two witnesses testifies that he observed a person lend a mana to each other. So remember, we had, before the Yeshua ben Korcha argument with the rabbis had been, whether two people testifying that so-and-so owes so-and-so a mana of money, whether the fact that it's the same debt matters. Remember? So I borrowed 100 from Ron on Monday, and I borrowed 100 from Ron on Tuesday. He's only got one witness for Monday, and he's got one witness for Tuesday. Together they make two witnesses that I owe a mana. Can the court make me pay him a mana, or does he not have two to establish either one?
Right.
Second case was, I borrowed a mana for money from Ron on Monday, and on Tuesday one witness testified that I borrowed that mana, and on Wednesday another witness testified that I borrowed that same mana on Monday, and there was a dispute about whether or not witnesses testifying at different times about the same mana constitute two witnesses testifying quote unquote together or not. Right?
Right.
So those are the concerns that are floating in the air, and as the Talmud likes to do, we're going to make it more complex. We're going to move beyond the simple case of borrowing money to the case of property, right? Landed property, which obviously someone is always going to have possession of, and someone else is not going to have possession of. As opposed to money, you don't know if he has possession of it. Ron gave me $100 and I went to the horse track. Who's to say that the $100 that I don't have in my pocket was the $100 from Ron or some other $100 that I just blew? Or on 2 days after the horse track, I have the $100 in my pocket. Who's to say that's the $100 he gave me or some other $100 I have? Right? It's fungible. So you can't identify it as easily unless you write down serial numbers or something. Right? As opposed to land, somebody is in possession of that land.
And it's not fungible.
And it's not fungible. Right? Okay? All right, so that makes land different. Okay. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Avin Amar Rav. Rabbi Chia bar Avin said in the name of Rav, Halacha ka Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. It follows Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. Bein bekarkaot, bein mitaltalin. And these are two words that every Talmudic student needs to know really well. Karka and mitaltalin. Karka means land. Mitaltalin means movable objects. It can be a candlestick or it can be money. Sometimes they'll call money mamanot, meaning coins. Sometimes they'll just lump it in with metaltalin, which is movable property. So anything that you can pick up and walk away with is metaltalin. Anything you can't would be karka, land. Okay? So if I've got a bridge...
Karka means something else in here?
It just means land. If I come and I want to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, am I selling you metaltalin or karka?
Karka.
Neither. No one can sell the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh, that's a JTS
Who's
joke,
wearing your
right?
friend's jacket?
Every class falls for that. Okay, boy, do I have a bridge to sell you. Okay, so both regarding metaltalin and karka, it follows Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha.
Who was what, from the Mishnah time?
Rabbi, yeah, he should be. He's a Tana.
Okay.
Okay? A Rav is an Amora and a Rabbi is a Tana. 99% of the time. Okay, Ula Amar. Ula says, Halacha ka Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha bekarkaot. The halacha follows Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha in land, real property, aval lo b'mitaltalin, not with movable property. Amar le Abaye. Abaye says to Ula, halacha miklal de flige. The halacha follows Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha in regard to real property. It implies the sages argue with him. So, if Ula comes and says, halacha ka Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, that would imply to Abaye that the halacha had to be decided according to him, which would imply to Abaye that there was an argument with him about it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to decide it according to him. And since we don't have anyone that he's arguing with, he must have been arguing with the sages. So Abaye has come to the conclusion that because Ula said, halacha ka Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, that Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha had been in an argument with the sages and had won. Okay, so that's the first piece here. V'ha'amar, Rav Abba bar Rav Huna amar Rav. But Rav Abba said in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav, these are Amoraim, Modim chachamim leRabbi Yeshua ben Karcha be'edut karka. The sages had acknowledged that Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha was correct concerning testimony about land. In other words, I have a teaching from the lead Amoras in Bavel that the sages did not argue with Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. So why is Ula telling us halacha ka Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha? There must have been a kami plage. There must have been some kami plage. There must be something they were arguing about. But I have a tradition that they weren't arguing about karka. See what's happening here? Mm-hmm. The stam of the Gemara is starting to have fun. V'tane Rav Idi bar Avin b'nezikin devei korna, and Rav Idi bar Avin taught from a Baraita, Tanaitic age teaching, from the order of tractate Nezikin, which is damages and tort law in the Mishnah, as taught in the Academy of Karna, Modim Chachamim LeRabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. The sages agree with Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha be'edut bechor, regarding testimony about a firstborn animal. By the way, a firstborn animal is an example of metaltalin, movable property. So, the stam of the Gemara is setting up a problem. He says, Abaye said to Ula, there must have been an argument. I have one tradition saying there's no argument with land, and I have another tradition saying there's no argument with an example of metaltalin. So what could they possibly be arguing about? See how they're building the difficulty? All right. Uve edut karka, and regarding real property, uve and regarding the laws of chazakah, which we'll explain to in a moment, ba ben u ba bat. Similarly, regarding testimony regarding the adulthood of a boy or a girl. So this whole thing says that there's testimony regarding real property, but in regard to testimony regarding establishment of chazaka as well, and similarly regarding whether a boy or a girl is old enough to be legally competent.
How did that get in there?
That's just what the teaching is. Okay? So you have this kind of summary teaching that there's no argument with Yeshua ben Karcha about land, and there's no argument with Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha regarding a number of non-land issues.
Not necessarily.
The animal, chazakah, which we'll explain in a minute, and the adulthood of a boy or a girl. Adulthood of a boy or a girl is important because of inheritance and marriage law, which are both financial dealings.
Can the
So
girl
that's money.
or boy be a witness?
Not if they're not an adult. So if they're challenged about whether or not they're adult, you need witnesses that they're an adult, and then they can be a witness to something
What
else.
about if the boy was bar mitzvah?
Can't be bar mitzvah unless he's an adult. So the Mishnah has a case about how is a boy old enough for that, and it says that he's 13, or it says he has developed pubic hair, and one of those two, and then you get into the question of, do you really want to be checking these things out?
Yeah.
Let's just go with his birthday. Yeah.
Does this have anything to do with having to sell the firstborn to the Levine at all?
No.
There's nothing to do with that.
No, the Pidyon Ben to the Cohen is not here, no.
So that would be 3 cases, depending on what comes.
All of which are kind of
Not
monetary.
sure what- Yeah, so that's enough.
It's a lot, but look, if I come and I tell you the halacha is because Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha in the general category of land,
Yeah.
and in these 3 specific categories of money,
Right.
what does that teach you?
That there must have been other
Teaching that the
categories.
rabbi whose prior opinions have been settled, therefore this current thing should be settled as well. based
This
on-
should be settled, but we're trying to determine about this second category of movable things. If I come and I tell you the halacha regarding movable objects is according to Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha on the following 3 topics, what does that tell you?
He's got credentials.
No, it
Well,
tells,
It does tell you that, but it also tells you something else.
there's something else.
That it's probably only those 3 topics. All the other movable property topics are probably not like Yeshua ben Karcha, or you're going to have to tell me you have a tradition that says they are. Otherwise, why would I give you these 3 specific examples? Unless these 3 specific examples add up to be the entire category.
So it's telling you don't extrapolate, this is a finite set.
Right. If I tell my kid, there are snacks in the cabinet, you can have the Triscuits and the Cheez-Its. Does that mean they can eat the Oreos?
No.
Almost never. Right? Or if I say your mother is in charge of laundry and meals. Right? So every time they come to me for a ruling on laundry or meals or a complaint about laundry and meals, I say, your mother is in charge of laundry and meals. Does that mean they should not come to me about sports? Right?
Right, got it.
So in Talmudic logic is if you give specific things that are subcategories, it's usually limiting how much the rules are applying. You're limiting to the categories you're being given. Unless you're being, if you're given examples, it's limiting. If you're giving categories, it's broad. So karka, land is category. Movable objects, they've given these 3 specific things. So you can already see how the Stam is setting this up. So let's review quickly from Ula's statement. Amar Abaye le'Ula. Abaye says to Ula, the halacha is like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. That implies the sages must have had an argument with him. But Rabbi Abba said in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav, that Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, regarding testimony of real property, is acknowledged by the rabbis. And Rav Idi ben Avin taught in a Braita, Tanaitic source, in Nezikin, from the Academy of Karna, that the sages agree with Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha regarding a firstborn animal, testimony regarding real property, and in testimony regarding chazaka, and the adulthood of a boy and a girl. Okay, so the second teaching agrees on karka with the first half of this teaching, but it also adds these few categories of metaltali.
This is whether or not you could have one witness versus two witnesses. 'Cause I thought with property, you could get away with one witness, and with the movable objects, you needed two witnesses. I'm not, I know they're talking about, but I'm not, what's the issue that they're talking about there? It goes with them.
Yes, what did Yeshua ben Karcha teach? Okay, so let's go back and make sure that we've got his teaching correct. Just skimming, because he got brought a few times on the last part of the page. Okay, 30A4. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Omer, Afilo bezeh achar zeh. Even if they witness two separate events that occur one after the other, their testimonies may be combined. So he was allowing two guys to testify on separate but analogous testimony and allow them to be binding in the court. That was Yeshua ben Karcha. Okay? That may or may not be the issue. But that was what brought him into our conversation. All right? The Gemara reserves the right to change its opinion about what Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha had been teaching to begin with. Okay? Okay, so here we go. Gavra kairamit. So, do you mean to contrast the view of one person with another? Mar savar plige? Umar savar lo plige. So look, if you're bringing Abba against whoever, Rav Edi, you've got an Amora against an Amora interpreting a Tana against a Tana. Like, there's nothing bad happening here. One of them can be right, one of them can be wrong. I mean, so what? There's an argument, right? You can't determine absolutely what the halacha is here if you have two equally authoritative people arguing. It's just one person's arguing with another. So one master, Ula, maintains that the sages argue with Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha regarding real property, and the other maintains that, this is Abba and Rav Edi, that they do not argue with him regarding property. Okay, so maybe Ula at the beginning, Ula Amar, halacha ka Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha bekarkaot. Right? That phrase would seem to be, if the halacha is like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha in landed issues, then the sages must have disagreed with him in landed issues. That's Ula's point of view. These other two guys don't believe that. They believe that Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha and the sages were acknowledging of each other regarding Karka. They disagreed on this other topic in different ways. Right? The problem with that is Ula's of a higher authority, but okay. The Gemara returns to the Brightest final ruling and analyzes it. Mai v'chein shebevein u v'shebebat. And what is this similarly regarding a boy and a girl? Ilema achad omer achat begaba. If we are to say the case where one witness says to the girl, I observed one hair on her back, ve'achad omer achat bechrisa, and one said one hair on her front, and the basis of their testimony she's considered an adult. Hai chatzi davar v'chatzi edutu, but that's only half testimony and half testimony. So, they're literally splitting hairs. Ooh. Ooh. What? What'd I say? So remember, the Talmud was usually studied men alone in a room. So I'm sorry that we're getting into very personal anatomical things about how someone would testify or not testify. Somebody is testifying that from the back they saw a sign of puberty, and someone else from the front they saw a sign of puberty, and you're combining the two signs for the halachically necessary two hairs. So that's similar to Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, who has two people testifying to two loans on 2 days, being combined to establish that together there's a loan of 100. Look, if you got a hair from the back and you got a hair from the front, you got 2 hairs, right? And that's what they're doing.
But that's 2 observations of the same anatomy versus the $100 at the racetrack.
But it's not the same anatomy. They're each only testifying to one hair.
Front and back, yeah, okay.
No, one is testifying to one hair and another is testifying.
To a different hair.
It's corroborating.
And for Yehoshua ben Karcha, this
The rule is 2 hairs.
right. So neither one of them is seeing two hairs.
So is the rule that the observer, that the single observer has to see?
That's what we're arguing about. Okay, so Yeshua ben Karcher says, come on, guys. 1 + 1 is 2. Hello? Right? And other people would say, no, the rule is 2. Nobody saw 2. Okay? That's what's going on. Again, I apologize for the anatomy, but that's the text. That's what we're dealing with. Okay.
Is there a restriction on the period of time between the first witness and the second?
In the original case of Yeshua ben Karcher that came from the Baraita, it did not give us a restriction on time, but it was based on something in the Mishnah that was interpreted as one day and the next day. Remember, it said umachar chavero, the following day, and Yeshua ben Karcher was brought in the wake of that. So it would seem it could be a day or two. We're not talking about somebody who's coming, in Elul and someone else is coming in Nisan. Right? That wouldn't make sense. Puberty is an evolving situation, right? So you wouldn't want time to pass for that kind of. It's like testifying to the new moon, 2 months apart from each other. You might both be seeing a new moon, but is it really the same thing? Okay, Gavra. All right, so Ella echad omer shtayim begaba, ve'echad omer shtayim bekrise. So the Gemara say, no, the Baraita is referring to a case where one says, I saw 2 in the back, and one said, I saw 2 on the front. And in that instance, each of the witnesses are testifying that she's an adult, even though they're testifying on different things they're seeing, and that way they would combine. So to be analogous to the 2 witnesses of a debt of 100 coins, it's not like one person is seeing 50 coins and one person is seeing 50 coins, and together you're going to make him owe 100 coins. That would be one person seeing 1 and one person seeing 1. They're actually both testifying that she's not an adult, and you're going to be combining them to say the opposite of the purpose of their testimony, that she is an adult. So you're doing math they're not doing, and the outcome is separate from what their testimony is. That doesn't work. But if one guy said, I saw 2 on the back, and the other said, I saw 2 on the front, they're both testifying to her adulthood, and even though they're not viewing the exact same thing, they're both making the same claim. Does that make sense?
It does, but why isn't that recorded in the Mishnah or the other source? In other words, they're talking about cases. Where are the records of those cases? What? They're not there.
The Mishnah is an incomplete and terse document.
Boy, I'll say.
And they're just summarizing from what was
Right.
decided
I
previously.
thought that women couldn't be witnesses.
Women can be witnesses. These are men testifying about women, probably, but it could be a woman testifying about a woman.
And women are allowed to be a witness?
I believe that women are allowed to be a witness, certainly, and I believe that the Torah allowed women to be witnesses. The Talmudic system swung away from that for about 1,000 years, and women were generally not allowed to be witnesses except in specific areas. I would think that a woman testifying to a girl in mikveh, which would be a reasonable scenario, should be believable, because otherwise you have men needing to testify about women in mikveh, and that's not a reasonable scenario.
But in this scenario where she's testifying about money or property, she
There,
is allowed.
there
to
are
be
money and
inherited.
property cases where a woman is allowed to testify. For example, a woman is allowed to testify regarding her ketubah and the death of her husband. A woman who returns from overseas, she went away married, she came back alone, and she's trying to claim her ketubah because of the death of her husband in a faraway land, which nobody here can testify to. She's believed. As a single witness involved in the case, she's believed, and she's
in
given her
this
ketubah.
case, For money
The
and
Gemara,
property?
is not saying if this is a male or a female witness. The person they're witnessing about is a woman at this moment, but it could be a boy or a girl, because this text says ben or bat.
So in other words, they saw 2 hairs on the boy also?
Could be the same case, yes, absolutely correct. This is not about it being a girl, this is just about it being someone who is going through puberty, boy or girl,
Oh,
okay?
But women were always allowed to testify in the case of inheritance. I mean, that goes
Yeah.
back to the Torah. There's a story in the
Yeah,
just
but
read it.
the Gemara and the medieval commentaries will completely undo the story of Slovcha.
Is that right? Really?
Completely undo it, yeah.
Okay.
Because if you take the second telling of that story, they're forced to marry into the clan. They have to marry men within those
Right.
tribes so that the property is not lost, which means that had they not done that, it would not have moved with them, right? Or you could learn from that because if they hadn't done that, it would have moved with them. So you have to argue that one way or the other, and generally it gets argued to undo it. I wish that weren't the case, but that's the
Yeah.
case. The Gemara returns now, unless you want to dwell on the topic,
Yeah.
to the discussion of whether the halacha follows Yeshua ben Karcha in cases regarding property as well as loans. Gemara will consider an additional question regarding loans, whether Yeshua ben Karcha's ruling is followed even when the testimony relates to separate transactions, which we've already anticipated, each witness observed a different loan, or only where their testimony centers on the same transaction, that is to say, each one separately heard the debtor admit that he owed somebody money. Okay? All right, so Amar Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef says, Ana mina mishmei de'ula. I say in the name of Ula, halacha ke Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, the halacha is like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, bein bekarkaot, bein b'metaltalin.
All right.
So the first teaching we had in Ula said just in karkaot, he gets the halacha. Rav Yossi comes out and he says, nope, he gets the halacha in everything. Okay? Bein bekarka, bein b'metaltalin. The Rabbanan atu mim chuza amre amar Rav Zera mishmei de Rav bekarka ein aval lo b'metaltalin. But the rabbis who arrived from Mechuzah said that Rabbi Zera said in the name of Rav that regarding karka he does get the halacha, but not regarding metaltalin.
Where was Mechuzah? Where was that?
Well, if they came from Mechuzah, they're probably coming from the west to the east. Let's verify that. Do we have a footnote? Mechuzah doesn't ring a bell with me off the top of my head. This is what happens when I teach first day after vacation. I don't do the research in advance. Usually ki atu rabbanan, when the rabbis came or when somebody came, it is usually someone coming from Israel to Bavel, bringing some form of authoritative teaching from Israel to Bavel.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around.
No, the authoritative teachings never go from Bavel to Israel. Okay? So the chances are that's what this is, and so you've got a problem. Okay? Now the Gemara say, Rav latame, Rav follows his own reasoning. Damar Rav, because Rav said, Hoda'acha hoda'ah, it's an admission of a debt following an admission of a debt. Hoda'acha halva'ah, or an admission following a loan, mitztarfe, you can combine. That is to say that the debtor can be obligated if each was witnessed by a single person, because both witnesses are testifying about the same obligation, an admission following an admission. So, Ron admitted to you that he owed me 100, Ron admitted to you that he owed me 100, even though you didn't witness the same admission, you each witnessed an admission about the same thing.
Right, but we covered that already. Didn't we?
Right, well, we're backing up and getting a running start.
Okay.
This is another way of dealing with the same material. Remember, the work of the Stam here is not to tell one coherent story. It's to bring the tradition on the topic he has, deal with it, then bring another tradition on the topic, if he has it, and deal with it. If he can combine them, fine. If not, he's just going to drop them down
And leave it.
sequentially without connection.
Okay.
All right? So this is another, suffice it to say, the teaching of Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha is troublesome. Right? The fact that I can have two witnesses testifying about two different things as individuals on different days in a court and force somebody to pay money as a result is troublesome. The Torah is clear, al pi shnaim yakum davar. On the basis of two, something will be established. This is a really flexible, creative
Stretch.
way to get to two people testifying about something in a court of law. Right? So it's not surprising that people were dealing with this in different ways at different times, because they couldn't get around it because he's a Tana, and it got handed down.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
is Rabbi Karka one of the judges in this case?
No, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha was a judge in the land of Israel, and Ben Korcha, and his ruling as precedent law is being dealt with by later judges in later cases. So, it's like if the Supreme Court ruled, one way 30 years ago,
And the
and
lower.
then and a new case comes up, you've got to deal with what they said 30 years ago now. And if what they did 30 years ago was messy, that's going to make what you do now messy. Right? So that's what's happening. Okay. Now, there's an objection against Rav. So remember, Rav Yosef said that he thinks Ula said that Yeshua ben Korcha said this opinion regarding all kinds of cases. But the rabbis who came said in the name of Rav that Yeshua ben Korcha does not apply to metaltalin. So we've seen that before.
Right.
This is an origin for that. The Gemara says Rav's reason was when there's an admission about a debt and another admission about a debt, or an admission about a debt following a loan about a debt, right? So if I have one witness to the loan and then one witness later to him admitting the loan, that would be two witnesses on the loan. If I have one witness that he admitted the loan and another witness that he admitted the loan, that's two witnesses on the loan.
Right.
Do you get the two different cases?
Yes. I mean, I do.
Okay, in one case, one witness saw the loan and one witness heard him admit the loan. In the other case, two witnesses separately heard him admit the loan. So according to this claim, that's Rav's point of view. Okay? All right. Halva'a achar halva'a, a loan following a loan. Halva'a achar hoda'a, or a loan following an admission, lo mitzdarfei. But if it was one loan and then a separate loan, or it was an admission before the loan and then a loan, that is not what Rav would say is the halacha of Yeshua ben Korcha. So when Rav comes in and says that the law is not, according to Yeshua ben Korcha, in metaltalin, it's because there are 4 cases of metaltalin in a loan, 2 of which he would not allow this to happen. Okay? There's an admission of a debt followed by an admission of a debt. There's a loan followed by a loan. There's a loan followed by an admission. And there's an admission followed by a loan.
Right.
Those are the 4. It's a logic cube. Okay?
Right.
4 scenarios. In 2 of those scenarios, admission after admission, or admission after loan, Rav says, yes, Yeshua ben Korcha, you're correct. But if it's loan after loan, it doesn't work.
Or loan following.
Or if the admission precedes the loan, that doesn't work. And you can kind of logically try and figure out why that might be. We don't need to do that. All right?
Okay.
Okay, Ashkeche Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak la Rav Huna berei de Rav Yoshua. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak met Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua. Amarle, he said, hey, ho fellow, well met. Maishna halva'a char halva'a de lo. So now they're going to look at it. So why wouldn't he let it be a loan after a loan? That it would seem like that's enough to know that at least that much has been loaned, right? The mana de kachazehai la kachazehai, because when it was a mana of money, not a formal loan, one guy did a mana, one guy did another mana, and we combined them and it was fine. What makes it different that it's a formal loan followed by a formal loan that you're not going to allow it? It's a great argument. It's a great question, right? It's not consistent. Apparently, it's because the mana de kachazehai la kachazehai. Because the loan of a mane that this one witnessed, the other one did not witness, and vice versa. And hoda'a achar hoda'a nami, so too an admission following an admission as well, we should not combine their testimony for the same reason. This is his objection. Amana de ka mode kamehai la mode kamehai. The obligation of a mane to which he admitted before this witness is not necessarily the one to which he admitted before the other witness. And so he may have borrowed 2 mane and admitted each obligation in the presence of one witness. Isn't that a big problem? In other words, he's messing it up.
Right.
We had worked it out, and this guy comes in and he's challenging the concept at its core. Like, how can you say that a mane after a mane is fine, but a loan after a loan is not fine? How can you say that an admission after a loan is fine, but an admission before a loan is not fine? They run the logic about it both ways. Either they're all garbage or they should all work. Right? It doesn't make sense. So Rav Huna answers that it is only in certain circumstances that the testimonies can be combined. De amar le lahai batra. The debtor tells this last witness, Bahai mane de odiye le kamach. This money he's holding in his hand, to which I am admitting before you, odiye le nami kami ploni, I also admitted before so-and-so. So if there's an admission happening second, he's admitting that it is the same one that he had done in front of the first
Okay.
person. Is that what the case said?
No.
No. But that would resolve it. Right? So that's the opinion of Rav Huna. Akti batra yada, but still the last one only knows, the last witness knows that they're testifying about the same mane. Kame lo yada, but the first witness would not know that. So that when the first witness testified about the loan, he didn't know there's a second witness. He knows he's only testifying as a single witness.
So
The
what?
second witness is testifying that he knows he's part of the testimony with the first witness. And remember, we had this concept that the two witnesses needed to know that their testimony was being combined.
I don't remember
That was momentary, but it was a couple pages ago.
So would that mean that, let's say the first witness comes.
Hang on just a second.
Okay,
So I'll remind you of it. So there was the statement that you had to tell the witnesses, you are both my witnesses about this thing.
that. Oh, yeah, no.
So now if you're gonna split them up day after day, maybe you still need to tell them, you and so-and-so are gonna be my witnesses about this thing.
That was when the loan was made, but the case might have came a month later.
Who only has one witness at a loan? That's dumb. So maybe when I'm loaning and I only have one witness, I know I'm gonna be admitting this same loan tomorrow to Joe when he gets off the train. So you guys need to know that you, Reuven, you're my witness today, know that tomorrow I'm gonna admit this to Shmuel.
Right.
So
Which is
Reuven
kosher.
knows he's combining with Shmuel, even though Shmuel's not there.
So when they
why does it say
testify,
that the first
they have to
witness doesn't
say
know?
that?
So if he didn't do that, if he just said to Shmuel, this is the money that I borrowed in front of Reuven, right?
No.
Then Reuven didn't know that Shmuel existed, but Shmuel knew that Reuven existed. So Reuven would be kosher as part of combining two, but maybe Shmuel's not. That's the objection that's being raised.
There's no meeting of the minds, the three people don't.
Right, the two witnesses both don't have the same idea in their heads when they're witnessing. Yeah.
That answered my question, because I was thinking, say the first witness testifies, doesn't know that there's gonna be a second one, so at that point, when there is a second one, they would have to go back and then tell the first one that there is a second one as well.
Right. Which would invalidate his testimony from seeing the first thing, because he didn't have that knowledge when he did
Right.
it to begin with.
That was one of the.
So you can't go back and redact your testimonial experience. Doesn't work, right? That's the argument. Rav Nachman ben Yitzchak is going to counter that by saying, Akate batra yad. Oh no, we just did that. Rav Huna is now going to try and save himself. De hadar azil amar like lakama. The debtor must afterward go back and tell the first witness,
Right.
Hi mani de odiye le kamach, the mani which I admitted before you, odiye le nami kamin ploni. I also admitted it later to this other person. See, Huna just said exactly what you said. Okay? Amar le, by the way, which invalidates the whole need for Yeshua ben Korcha. The whole point of combining two testimonies is you don't have two testimonies. To go back and figure it out, to turn them into two testimonies before you bring them to court, like, it's not really the spirit of what Yeshua ben Korcha is trying to do. Yeshua ben Korcha is saying, I got one guy, we're going to combine them. So instead we're saying, well, we're only going to combine them if you went ahead and already combined them. Right? It makes Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha pretty useless. I mean, you're still using him, but he's not as powerful as he was a minute ago. All right, Rav Huna says, "Dahade azil amar le lekamet." So this is the one I made. Okay, amar le. So Rav Nachman ben Yitzchak is going to be very appreciative of this resolution. Amar le, Rav Nachman ben Yitzchak said to Rav Huna, the son of Rav Yeshua, "Tanuach datach shehit nachta adate." May your mind be at ease. You placed my mind at peace. Oh, my head was killing me over this. You solved this whole mess. Thank you so much.
Uh-oh.
A blessing on your head. Mazel tov, mazel tov. Rav Huna goes, no, It's not so easy, even though he just solved the whole thing. He's going to say, Amar Lay, he says back, my nichuta. Why is your head at rest? Because after all, nichuta, what rest can you possibly have? The Rava de iteme Rav Sheshet shada ba narga. For Rava, perhaps Rav Sheshet swung an axe at it. This has already been shot apart. Lav hainu the hoda'a achar halava. Isn't this a case of an admission following an admission? Right? So here's the scenario. In front of Reuven, I made a loan, and he's going to testify he saw the loan. In front of Shimon, I had an admission of the loan. He's going to testify the admission of the loan. You said you're not accepting that unless you go back in a third moment and admit to Shimon that you admitted, admit to Reuven that you admitted to Shimon.
Yes.
Which means you have a loan followed by an admission, which doesn't work until you have another admission.
Right.
So the only thing that's working is an admission following an admission,
Roll this back.
which we already said is not good.
He admits it to the first person, admits it.
He loans to the first person, admits to the second person,
that he has a loan from the person.
then
And
he has to
later
go
goes
back and
the
admit to the first
that
person
he told
that
the
he
second.
admitted to the second person,
Okay.
which makes it an admission after an admission, and it's no good.
Well, it is according to Rav, isn't it?
Oh, it's no good.
Rav said that an admission of debt following, or an admission following a loan. I misread that. Okay.
No, he had hoda'ah achar hoda'ah achar halava'ah, mitzdarfe.
Yeah.
So for Rav, it was fine. But Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak raised an objection to Rav.
Right, I got that.
Said he doesn't accept it. And Rav Huna came in, messing it up further, and Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak's, Rav Huna came in and fixed it. Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, and Rav Huna said, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said, thank you for solving my problem. And Rav Huna comes back and says, I didn't solve your problem, because they've actually chopped that apart in the following way. So Huna's just being a nudnik.
That's this last sentence there, it's, with all due respect, you guys are idiots.
Yeah, well, he's just running circles around
Yeah.
them, right? I don't know if you've ever had somebody do this. Somebody will argue with you, and you'll beat them in the argument, and they'll turn the argument to something else against, like they'll flip sides of the argument, like they'll win your argument against yourself or something. Like they'll twist it around, like.
It's a moving target.
Yeah, hey, let me make this clear. Let's say I'm arguing, well, let's make it family. Everybody can identify with family. This is not a real scenario. So I'm arguing with my wife, right? We're arguing. We're having a disagreement. She says A, I say B. Eventually, I agree on A, right? At which point she immediately flips to B. Very common dynamic in family conflicts, right?
Right.
You're a family counselor, right? Person one is arguing A, person B is arguing B. B finally gives up and accepts A, and A is so invested in the dynamic of conflict that A will then flip to B to pursue the argument, right? Right. It happens all the time if you're aware to the dynamic, right?
There's a wonderful question about that. It's called, would you rather fight or would you rather solve the problem?
Correct. I'm not here to solve the problem. I'm here to fight, right? So Huna is here to fight. That's what
It
happened,
looks like.
right? And when Nachman when Nachman is finally, oh, thank goodness my problems are solved, Huna comes back and goes, no, you got a bigger problem, right? All right. So Huna does that. Rav Nachman now is going to comment on Huna retracting his peacemaking point of view. Amarle, he says to him, Hayu dishmei li alaychu. That corresponds with what I've heard about people like you. That is so like you to do that. So what happens when the argument flips? It becomes personal. It becomes a character flaw. It becomes something wrong with you. We're no longer arguing the point, we're arguing the person. Right? Does this sound familiar to anybody?
You just remind me of your fill in the blank of the other person.
Yeah, that's right. You and your whole family. Every Tobin in the world has always been just like you. I've heard about you. Remito dikle vizakfitu laho. You chop down trees and you replant them. You have this strange practice of resolving difficulties and then resurrecting them, right? You just can't let anything rest. Okay, Nehardayam, right? But the Nehardayans say, and so you need to know the geography of Bavel. Nehardea, Pumbedita, and Sura are the three great yeshivas in Bavel. Sura and Pumbedita have most of the arguments back and forth, and every once in a while Nehardea shows up as the dysfunctional third wheel in the arguments. So the Nehardeans have a saying about this behavior. Bein hoda'ah achar hoda'ah, whether it's from admission to admission, bein hoda'ah achar halava, or an admission after a loan, or bein halava'ah achar halava'ah, or a loan after a loan, bein halava'ah achar hoda'ah, or a loan after an admission, mitzdarfot.
Yes, they're all kosher.
We do them all. Come on, and whose point of view is that? Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha.
You see, one after all.
Only in Nehardea.
So that leaves unresolved between the.
It's resolved in Nehardea, and the stam is done bringing traditions around Yeshua ben Karcha. We have these three different grapplings with it. It seems unresolved mostly, except in Nehardea, they just made a sweeping ruling. It's resolved. It's very likely that moving forward, the halachic books that read Talmud for rulings would see that as the last ruling and would take that as authoritative. Okay? Okay. Now, she and my wife are now talking about it. Sorry. Mute. Okay. The heck?
What time is it in Israel?
10 to 1.
It's not even Israel. I think she's still in the Czech Republic. It's like 6 a.m. I guess she woke up and over breakfast started the text about what it was like yesterday. She must
How
have
big
been.
a group is going?
I don't know. I have no idea. Isn't that horrible?
It's not your problem.
I put her on a plane. I know when to pick her up. In the meantime, I hope to hear from her. This is, it's like, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but parents today, when they send their kids to summer camp, the summer camps have video photographers
Yeah.
who spend all day taking pictures of kids, and then at the end of the day, the pictures get posted on the camp website. And all the helicopter parents, the hovering parents, rush to the website, click, 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 refresh, 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 waiting for the pictures to show up. And once they show up, of course, they're not indexed, to find your kids. So there's like 200 pictures, and these parents are looking through every one of the 200 pictures, every face to find their kid, and then they don't find their kid, and they send a hate mail to the camp. Where's my child? Is my child okay? Or once, this is the most funny one. We got a picture, first summer my kids were at camp, there's a picture of my daughter and someone who was supposedly a friend of hers. And they, instead of being together and happy, they were on opposite sides of the group, and they were both frowning, scowling, angry looks, right? And the two couples happened, the father, mother of both girls happened to be together seeing the picture at the same time. And it was hysterical because one mother had a, oh my reaction. The other mother had a, I have to call the camp and find out what's wrong reaction. And both fathers had the reaction of, that's why we send them away, so we don't need to deal with that. Right? Like, my reaction to that picture was, I am so glad I'm not there.
It gives you a break.
So, I'm a horrible parent. I have no idea how many people are in the group.
Gotta dump all the photos into Google Photos because it does facial.
Yeah, now you can do facial recognition, but they have proprietary ownership over them and all that stuff. All right, anyways, here we go. Gemara turns to a topic. Oh, 12:56. You know what? I don't think we should begin a topic right now. I think we should stop.
Okay.
Because now we're going to get into money, and it's a whole new thing. Okay?
Yep.
But we been into money all this time.
Well, we were dealing with loans, now it's gonna be different. I mean, there's different ways you can have money cases. Money cases can be from a store, right? Like I paid $100 for something, and it doesn't always have to be a loan. All right?
Okay,
Now, is there a class next week or no?
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
But the
Okay.